name is James Sotilli. I'm the Faculty Senate President. I've been elected for 2 years. Donna Donathan is the Vice President. She had some surgery, so she's not here today. Cheryl Brown is the Secretary. She's in class right now, so she's not here today. And I did see Dallas Brozick. He is the parliamentarian. Where's Dallas? There's Dallas in the back. So I thank Dallas for attending. And most of all, and Bernice isn't in, but you all saw Bernice Bullock. Oh, there she is right over there. I want to thank Bernice. She has been quite helpful. She's the Senior Administrative Assistant Secretary for the Faculty Senate. She's done a fabulous job. So thank you, Bernice. Right now, I'd like to take a moment for silence and to reflect and to provide positive thoughts for those who've been affected by the recent terrorism in the world. I also tried to come up with some type of statement that could capture the whole situation, but I was at a loss for words. But I did come up with this one saying, and I may have, I guess, plagiarized it from somewhere else, but here it goes. May all of our journeys of the heart and mind lead us all safely home. With that, I'm going to change to another topic. And I spoke just to the President, Dr. Dan Angel, right here recently. I also spoke to the Executive Committee and the Faculty Senate as a whole. And what I like to do is to try to come up with some type of idea, and I've asked the faculty senators through email to provide me with feedback related to how we can better educate the community about what we do as professors. I'm basically requesting for you to provide me, as well as the Senate collectively, with how we can basically market the career of a professor at Marshall. And maybe if I'll try to have Bernice send out an email to possibly to the whole faculty at large, asking for your ideas. At this time, I want to introduce Ben Miller. He's our rep for the ACF and HEPAC. Ben.
Good afternoon. Just a real quick announcement. I received in the mail from the Higher Education Policy Commission copies of 4 items that have been submitted to the Secretary of State. This is in regards to putting together some new policies that the Policy Commission wants to put forward. And we have just 3 weeks to make comments on them. And I think they're pretty important. As you can see, they're kind of thick and all, but you can read them on the web, and I'll give my copies to James, and we can have them over in the Faculty Senate office. The first has to do with academic freedom, professional responsibility, promotion, and tenure, which I think may be important to some of us. The other is a policy regarding program review, a policy concerning submission of proposals for new academic programs and the discontinuance of existing programs. And finally, the proposal for a policy on capital project management. So as things filter down, we have a Higher Education Policy Commission and a chancellor. The chancellor is employed by the Policy Commission, but as I have observed, at least since he has come on board, he has quite a few ideas about how things should be run, and he suggests them to the Commission, and in most cases the Commission seems to accept his ideas. They formulate policies, and then it filters down to the various campuses. So I suggest that you, if you have a pen or something you want to write down, www. All that stuff, HEPC, Higher Education Policy Commission, .wvnet.edu, and go in the website called Resources. And all 4 of these documents are there. And in lieu of a public hearing, a comment period has been established during which any interested person may send comments concerning these proposed rules. This comment period will end on October 31, 2001 at 10 a.m. Only written comments will be accepted and are to be mailed to the Office of the Chancellor, Higher Ed Policy Commission. So anyway, I bring this to your attention as your representative.
And as a follow-up to Ben, all your senators have that address. Thank you. Well, on a very positive note, I'd like to introduce the president of Marshall University, Dr. Dan Angel.
What is the state of Marshall University? Let's explore what we've done in the last year. Marshall University is on the move, and our formula for success is to do these things: to have a vision of the future, to have the vitality to pursue that, and those two things will equal verifiable results. Vision, vitality, and verifiable results. There's a famous quotation that I refer to often by Lee Iacocca. Those of you who know me well know that I'm a Detroit boy, so I use a lot of Iacocca-isms, as they're called. This one, I think, is particularly relevant to us. If you're going to shoot the duck, you have to move your gun. You can't just stay the way you are. Change is going on all about you. And I think looking at a target that we're shooting at is going to be what we have been doing and what we're going to be doing in the time that I've been in this state. There's a story of a famous marksman who had won every possible award he could in the military. And he had done so well that his community invited him back to the community, and they were just going to have a great celebration. So on his way into town, he looked on this cement wall, and he saw that there were about 30 targets. And every one of these targets had a bullet hole right in the middle. And he was astounded. He said, "How is this possible?" He said, "I've won all these awards for being a marksman, but somebody has done some fantastic shooting. I must meet this person." So he put out the word that he wanted to meet him, and much to his surprise, he found out the marksman was a 12-year-old boy. So he had a chance to meet this youngster, and he looked down at him, and he said, "I am amazed at what you've been able to do. It's just remarkable, your shooting." And the youngster looked up and said, "Well, sir, it isn't so hard. I just shoot the holes and then draw the circles." Unfortunately, most of us can't work at our targets that way. We not only have to have those targets in mind, but we constantly know these days that all those targets are moving ahead. So one of the ways to measure where we are as a university is to ask ourselves, how are we doing on some of those moving targets? Let's start by taking a look at the legislature. As you know, with Senate Bill 653, there were 5 new pots of money that were going to decide how we were going to do. Our goal was a very simple one. If there are 5 pots of money, guess what? We wanted to qualify in every single fund. Simple goal. How did we do? As the session unraveled, we did much better than we thought we would, and the 5 funds actually collapsed into 4. There was a fund for the Community and Technical College. There was a fund for the State Innovation Fund. There was a fund for research and a fund for peer equity, which was of great interest to us. And there was another fund called Sustained Quality. The peer equity and sustained quality got folded into one. But of the 4 funds remaining, legislatively we wanted to get money out of every fund, and we did. So we're relatively happy with that. We also had a new governor to work with. This is always an issue. When you're an institution, you get used to kind of who's in the front office. And when you get ready to change to a new administration, you have to make sure you do that as smoothly as possible. And I think we did that. Governor Wise has done several things that should impress higher education. First of all, way back when he was a brand new governor, when he cut the budget by 3%, he exempted higher education. And I don't think we should forget that. That was a major thing happening for Marshall University and all of higher education in the state. More than that, he's been very open. You can talk with him, you can call him, you can go into his office. He's been in my home twice. His wife has been at my home for a reception, Sandy Wise, and he has responded every time that we've called him. And I'd like to give you one example, which we've labeled bonded, little sense of humor. We were trying to get some bonds passed last year, which were very major for this university. Our goal was to build a new housing project, but we wanted to put some parking with it. And it became known as the Marshall Bill. We were the only institution in the state that wanted to make this happen. This is harder when you're the only institution that wants to do it. So much to my amazement, and you legislators will certainly understand this, the last day of session, regular session, I found out about 3 o'clock in the afternoon that the governor was going to veto our bill. And session ended that night, and talk about kind of a stressful afternoon. I got on the phone, and in 10 minutes, I was talking with Governor Wise personally. We discussed the possibility of finding a companion bill and putting the Marshall provision in it, and we did that. The bill just happened to be called Senate Bill 1007 for our bonding bill. And as you'll recall, when he came over to be our commencement speaker this last year, he signed that legislation at his commencement address. So I think he has gone the extra mile for Marshall University, and I'm delighted that we've had that kind of response from his office. He's also responsible for something called the Promise Scholarship. Now, when this started off, you'll all recall, we were not totally sure that this was a good thing, because when it was originally introduced, we thought that it was going to take away possibly from institutional funding, and that would be a problem because you're supporting something very good, but you might lose some institutional money. As it turned out, the Promise Scholarship, when it passed, did not take away money from the rest of higher education. And what it means is, if you have a 3.0 average in high school and a 21 ACT, which is the latest ruling, and a 3.0 in certain core courses, you will get all of your tuition and your fees paid in the state of West Virginia. That's a marvelous message. When I came here, I sometimes have a little irreverent sense of humor. I said, you know, we need to change West Virginia's image. I'm not sure it's such an idea, a good idea, for all of us to live in a state where you can eat roadkill. Something like that doesn't send the right national message that you want. The Promise Scholarship sends a great national message that we're changing our image in West Virginia, and we're moving on up. And it means that probably 3,000 students in this state will qualify for that scholarship next year. Now, it's aimed at two groups. We have right now about 12 to 15% of our high school graduates that choose to go to college in another state. This Promise Scholarship will help keep some of those students at home. We also think it'll have a big impact on who chooses to go on to college, because most people who don't go on in the state don't do it for financial reasons. Either they don't want to borrow the money to do it, or their parents don't want to make that investment to do it. So financing is a major part of having more students go to college and having more students go to college in West Virginia. So I'm a big backer of the Promise Scholarship. Among the 16 presidents in the state, I was the first enrollee under the Promise Scholarship proposal. Another thing that happened last year in the legislature is that we ended up with a tuition policy in the state that wasn't announced in advance. We didn't really know what that was going to be. We went forward with about a 6% tuition and fee revenue. The governor declared, and the policy commission decided to only have a 4% increase. From a student point of view, that will help our enrollment. From in terms of financing the institution, that make things a little bit more interesting. But there's no question, if you want more people to go to college in your state, you have to keep the fees low enough for them to do that. They also decided that there would be no tuition increase whatsoever for community colleges. And again, that creates some financial problems for us, but it's also good to know that more and more people will be able to attend the community college. One thing that wasn't good news is what happened with BRIM. Now, you've all been reading about how much malpractice insurance costs are. The doctors are paying a fortune. Well, if the doctors are paying a fortune, guess what? So are the universities. The bills in BRIM insurance for us have gone up massively. And our bill is about $500,000 more than it was 2 years ago. So those kinds of costs are very, very difficult, and we have to keep paying those bills. So BRIM still is a big issue affecting the state, and we're going to have to make sure we try to deal with that problem for our getting health care and also making sure we can do that in our categories. One of the brightest things in the whole year, without question, is the whole issue of peer equity. I know when we talked about this originally, even as the legislation was moving through the legislature, there were a lot of people who said, well, you know, we've talked about not getting our fair share of money for years and years and years. What are the odds that we're going to get any more than we used to get? Well, the odds weren't really good going in. But after the smoke cleared this past year, because of peer equity, this institution picked up $1.1 million that we would not have had under the old system. And we're due to get that adjustment for 3 more years in a row, although we'll have to fight for that. It isn't going to come about just by an accident, but the general agreement is peer equity adjustments for 4 years. We had an advantage in this effort. We had a national study done by a group called NCHIMS. So rather than Marshall saying we were underfunded, this national consultant group, which is really highly respected, came out with a study that said of the 16 institutions in West Virginia, they ranked them, 1 being good, 16 being the worst. We ranked number 15 in state funding. So clearly, we were at the bottom of the list, and we need to be brought up. So we picked up $1.1 million this year in peer equity funding. Now, how did we do that? We didn't do that because President Angel waved a wand. We did that because a lot of people did work for us. And I think it would certainly be inappropriate for me not to mention the wonderful help that we got from our state delegation. Their names are listed on there, but several of them are here today, and I'd like to have them stand and say thank you. We're also fortunate to have a lot of alumni who are in the legislature, and I don't want you to forget that. My last count of all the senators and delegates in the state, if you count our delegation and our state representatives and senators who are alumni, we have almost 40 people that are interested in what happens to Marshall University. This is good, so that works out well. Now, moving away from the state, let's go to federal money. You all remember my story last year in December that I got a call on a Friday night from Robert C. Byrd. I don't get many calls at night on Friday from him, and he wanted to share some news with me. And he shared with us the news that night that we were going to get a $25 million allocation for our new science technology building. What we didn't know until later this year is that when the Chronicle of Higher Education publishes their annual pork list, you've all seen that, heard that. Well, let me define pork for you. Pork means that you're getting money that there's no competition for, and it goes directly to an institution. If you don't get it, someone else does, it's pork. It's waste. It's not going for something you'd like to compete for. However, if you get it, it's called an earmarked allocation. So new respect for that term around here, earmarked allocation. What's interesting to note is that we've always done reasonably well at Marshall. For an institution of our size, we have done very well. And I think we've averaged maybe $2 million a year in terms of earmarked money. This last year, we went from total obscurity in the annual survey and became number 3 in America and all of the institutions. So that's an astounding figure. I had people back in Stephen F. Austin say, can you come back? But what a remarkable feat that was. And make no mistake, this came about because of Senator Robert C. Byrd. And I think it's still timely for you to thank him for all of his hard work and his efforts in doing so. I think another thing that we're celebrating this year is the 5th anniversary of our CODIS laboratory. This is the DNA testing that we do in terms of felons in the state. And Dr. Terry Finger has done a remarkable job in that area. And I think this year he recently got another $500,000 grant just recently. So Terry, if you're out there or if you're not, keep up the outstanding work. I talked in spring when I gave my first speech here. It was April of the year 2000. Seems like about a week ago. But one of the things that I highlighted at that time is we wanted to move from our classification as a regional university. We wanted to move in to being a doctorate-intensive institution. And I said to do that, we have to move and have 3 doctorate programs that generate 25 PhDs a year. Medical school doesn't count. As good as they are, and with all the awards that they're winning, including the ones just recently, where our students just knocked the socks off of their exam. Congratulations, Charlie, on that. That was really great to see. But medical school doesn't count on the chart that we're looking at, which is the Carnegie classification. So in April of 2000, I said we needed to have at least two new doctorate programs. Now, since we'd only had one in our 160-some year history, it didn't look like it was going to be that fast that we were going to be able to do it. But it has been. We went to and made a request for the Higher Education Commission. We requested 2 new doctorate programs at the same time. And you know what? They said yes. The next step after the HEPC approval is we have to go to the North Central Association and get the programs accredited. We added a new program, a doctorate in psychology, and it has already gotten approval from the NCA, and we will be starting that this next fall. And we had a group on campus just this week trying to measure our educational leadership doctorate. And we are hoping, you see the asterisk on this one, that we are hoping in this particular case we'll also be able to start that program next fall. So if we do that in the year 2002, instead of looking out to 2010, which I was talking about, we should be able to achieve that new research level by around 2005, 2006. So we've done very well in pursuing those doctorate programs. Now, one thing you may not know is that in addition to our long-range plan, we have had to develop a state master plan and a state compact that had to be approved on a separate basis. All the institutions in the state, 16 of us, had to develop these plans. Now, this was not a Sunday's afternoon walk in the park. We were creating something new. We weren't sure we knew how to do it. We had to do massive amounts of time and effort, and I'm sure many of you were heavily involved in that. But when we got through, we took those on a determined schedule to the Higher Education Policy Commission. They heard all the institutions, and they ranked them on a scale of 1, 2, 3. If you got a 1, it means you had done a good job and they were satisfied with that. If you got a 2, it means you had to go back and do some repair work in the near future. If you got a 3, you had severe repair work to do. Well, I want to point out that because of Vicki Riley in the community college area and Sarah Denman at our institution, we ended up the other thought. The other thing, and I add this simply as an information footnote, we were the only university in the state to get a 1. Last April of 2000, I asked for us to do something to complement our Marshall Plan. I really think back in 1995, when this institution implemented its Marshall Plan, they did something very forward-thinking in terms of capstone experiences, writing across the curriculum, scientific experience, diversity, worldview, and those kinds of things. Very important. I felt we needed to make a statement on who we were. And that came to me after I'd been here for about 3 months and heard what people believed and how proud they were about Marshall. So I suggested we come up with a Marshall Code, and it turned out to be a Marshall Creed. What I want to point out to you is these 12 value statements that we make, these 10 value statements that we've got, are institutional statements of who we are and what we believe in. And I believe we need to make that very prominent. I'd like to use that and put the Marshall Plan on one side of handout cards and the Marshall Creed on the other. So we make a statement of the values that we have, both academically and as an institution. Again, I want to thank the faculty, staff, and students for developing this and approving it in really breathtaking speed. It must have been a period of like 3 or 4 months till that was actually created. I didn't write it. It was written by people on this campus. But I want to thank you for articulating what our values are in this creed. Research. Back again in April of 2000, I pointed out that in 1990, this institution was doing $4 million a year research in terms of research money. When I spoke in April of 2000, the institution was doing $16 million in research. And in less than 2 years, right now, we're doing $24 million in research. And I want to thank the faculty who get those dollars for research. And I'd like the people who participated in the research that we have here, I'd like you folks to stand and say thank you to you. When we get our new science technology building, we're going to move that up ahead considerably. But we're doing a good job in research. Our target has been moving along very nicely. Student housing. We haven't built any new student housing at Marshall University in 30 years. 30 years. And we don't have a lot of it in the first place. You see before you a design of a multi-set of buildings and new cafeteria that will be available in the fall of 2003. And this is a very exciting undertaking. I know for the students it's a very, very big thing. But for us, it's going to make a whole section of campus that's not there spring to life. And it's going to be done in a very, very short period of time. I think making this happen was very problematical. We had to jump through a lot of legislative loops in doing that. And I want to thank Dr. Ed Gross, if he's here, for all the work that he did in making that happen. Ed, are you here? Now, if you're going to have housing, guess what? You need some parking. And I think every campus that I've ever been on does not have enough parking. You always want parking right beside the building you're going to be in, and you'd like to do that. It's probably not practical. But it does seem that we have to do something about improving our parking. So what we did with that bill that the governor signed is we made our plans to build our first ever parking garage. And sometime in the fall, I don't know exactly which month, sometime in the fall of next year, that parking garage will be up and we'll be using it. Now what it means to us is when we're building new buildings on our campus, we're going to be actually taking some of the parking spots we have. So this is not a net gain. But we have torn down the old Butler building this year, and we have about 70 parking spots there. We are tearing down the old hospital that we had. We're going to build about 280 spots there. Those should be available really by January. And then when we get all through with this and have all of our parking done, it's going to be a little bit of a hassle for a few months during there. But when we get all through, we will have increased the parking on our campus by 20%. And I think that's a significant improvement. Part-time faculty. You know, I think many times we go through our annual raises and what money we have, and we don't think about some of the people who teach on a part-time basis. Our salaries are not high for part-time people, but it came as a real shock to me that we have not raised part-time faculty salaries for 12 years at this institution. That's simply inexcusable. So this year, we made our first of what we think will be a continual effort to have those salaries start coming up. A 5% raise for our part-time faculty. And I know some departments have made some of their own money available to do this, but it's the first time in 12 years we've done that as a university. Same thing is true in graduate stipends, only it hasn't been so long. In the graduate stipend category, we haven't given those areas a raise from the university for 5 years. So we've also added a 5% increase in the graduate stipends. Very important for research. Growth. This is a very important target. Now, if you look at the state of West Virginia, for the last 15 years or more, you see the high school graduation rates going like this. And it's very amazing to me that our rates of people coming to this institution are going in exactly the opposite way. This year, again, for 9 out of the last 10 years, we will have a growth somewhere between 2 and 3%. And I think that's because of the kinds of things that we do, the kind of institution that we are. And I think every one of you have a part in making that happen. Marshall University attracts people because of the quality of what we're doing and the service that we provide. So I think we should all be very happy about that. Now, obviously, a group that's going to be very important to our future, we've always had a board of advisors, but this year we've moved up to our own board of governors. And Gary White is the chairman of the board, but we have several of our own board of governors here with us, and I'd like those members who are here to please stand and be recognized. You know, it's pretty refreshing to go before a board and realize that they're only interested in the same institution you are. And it's really important, and I think this is going to be a very valuable board for us. We intend to really speak for Marshall University, and it takes the expertise and know-how and clout of the individuals we have on our board to help us do that. Now, faculty accomplishments are very important, and frankly, this could be a large, large list. And I'd like to just cite 3 people as examples of the outstanding faculty that we have at Marshall University. First, and I think he'd be on most anyone's list, Dr. Robert Walker. He is the Distinguished Educator of the Year for Rural Health in the nation, and I think that's a very major thing. Dr. Walker, if you're here. The only problem with that is, Bob, is what are you going to do next year? But congratulations. We're very proud of you. Very proud of some of the remarks that you made just a week or so as well. Very well done. Second faculty member I want to highlight is Dr. Michael Castellani. How's that? Okay, Dr. Michael Castellani. He won the Chemistry Dreyfus Scholar Fellow Award, and that's a major award. We want to congratulate him. Michael, are you here? So that I won't do that again, pronounce it for me. Congratulations. Very good. And then our last individual we want to recognize as just a symbol of the outstanding faculty we have is really for a very important local thing. This individual, Dr. Elaine Baker, has handled our Center for Teaching Excellence. Now think about this. At our Center for Teaching Excellence, we have had over 700 faculty members participate in that. And that has an impact on 9,000 students that we have here. So I'd like her to stand if she's here and congratulate her as well. College of Liberal Arts, looking at what's gone on over the last year. They held their first annual undergraduate research and creativity conference. Now the key word in that is undergraduate, because I think a lot of institutions only think graduate students should do research. It's really important that we start instilling the importance of research in undergraduates. Our faculty and staff do an excellent job of that, and I want to say thank you for that effort. I mentioned earlier the Community and Technical College. You know, we're under a kind of a change period right here. We've been told by the legislature that we have to move our Community Technical College to independent accreditation. And I think we're moving along at a speed that's going to allow us to get there before any other part of the state that has the same kind of a structure we do. And I think part of that is due to the hard work of Dr. Vicki Riley. She has come aboard and just kind of got heavily involved in that. Now, you may not know that last year, as a legislative action, not during the bill being in process, but before the bill came out of committee, we added Kanawha County to our service area for our community and technical colleges. And Vicki has been working on a lot of programs in terms of computer and technology that are happening in Kanawha Valley by Marshall University. We could not have done that in the past. She's also been involved with, we have a magazine that's been published this year that has about a 6-page section on a program we do in terms of a program with painters and technicians throughout the whole United States. It's a national publication, and they gave us a 4-page spread on our summer program. We've also started a new program in maritime work here along our own area. We have one of the largest inland ports, maybe the largest inland port, and I think we've recognized our role in making that be effective. So I think that the Community Technical College is really on an action mode, and I'd like to thank Vicki Riley for her leadership. Now, while you're looking at the community college, you also want to look at the other end of the scale. What are we doing in terms of graduate education and graduate access? Ron Childress has really been doing a wonderful job in this category. This year, we have new graduate joint teaching arrangements with Fairmont State, with Shepherd, and with Glenville. We also have a new educational program, educational doctorate going on with WVU. It's not our old one that we did for 20 years. It's a new one on curriculum and instruction. The important points in our graduate access are two things. Number one, we provide access to graduate students in all 55 counties in this state. And that's something we need to share with the rest of the world. Second thing is that, without any question, we are the state leaders in making graduate education accessible. And we need to be proud of that. Congratulations to Ron Childress. Another thing that we started in 1999 is our university college. And Dr. Corley Dennison has been active in that role and done an excellent job. You may not know this though, that we have improved retention from first to second semesters for freshmen by 12% by this program. Very, very important number, and I think the chancellor was very impressed by that number. The second thing is that we were running a 90% or better success rate for our summer bridge program. Something that's not on this chart is our 101 course that we're teaching for freshmen. And I came across with something that just blew me away. I have never seen a faculty do something like 101 for basically no pay. There have been 100 people that have been teaching our 101 course, and they're doing this for like coupons at the bookstore, as I understand it. Remarkable, remarkable. This year, we are going to we have made available a $500 stipend for that. But without going by, I want everybody who's been teaching in that program, any year before now, everybody who's been teaching in that program and doing it out of love of teaching and care of students. I'd like you to stand. Another thing is our June Harless Center. As you know, this is something that we started with Buck Harless in the memory of his late wife, June Harless. This year, I went to a very special dedication not too long ago in Wayne County at the Kellogg School. And what we have is an exemplary elementary school program. Actually, it's for kindergarten and first grade. And what we have is a model program. It's the first of its kind in the state where you can learn how to do this better, and you can do it by distance education as well as being there. A remarkable piece of progress. Larry Freilich, I want to thank you for your role in doing that. Larry, are you here? Technological leadership. I am just amazed at what we can do on our campus. When I found out that in the year 2000, we had been listed as one of the top 100 technologically proficient institutions in the country, I wasn't too amazed when I saw what we do. Jan Fox, Jan, are you here? Jan Fox put together a list for me at my request last year of what Marshall University has done first in technology in this state. That list goes back over 10 years and has more than 20 items on it. This year, we added new things to that. Number one, we added the fact that we have added a chance to pay your tuition bill electronically. And so we were the first university in the state to do that. And at the Governor's Technology Awards this year, we received 2 of those technology awards. So we're doing many things well in that category, and we're very proud of that. New faculty. Last year, I think we had about 50 new faculty. This year, we have 55. So in the last year or two, we've added over 100 new faculty. I want to welcome all of you to this university, and I'd like to point out that at least 110 of you are newer than me. But I think there's a great vitality to having people who've been here for a long time, and there's also a vitality that you get from having people join us. So I'd like to welcome all of our new faculty from this year. If you're new this year, would you please stand? One of the other things that I noticed we did this summer is we had a number of people involved in flood assistance. Many faculty, many students were involved in that, and I think it's something that says again who we are at Marshall University. And we tried to help a lot of people prepare for school this fall in a very, very devastating situation. So it's just an example of what Marshall University is like. You may not know that there's been a national publication this year, and it's featured 7 libraries in the country. It's done by the College and Research Association, and they have had 7 colleges highlighted because of their library facilities. And we are fortunate enough to have a 6-page spread in this book as one of those 7 institutions. And you'll notice we have the cover. The cover, very impressive. We also had a student last year who was picked, a former student, a 1970 graduate, who was picked by Time Magazine and CNN as one of the best scientists in America. That's the kind of thing we're very proud of at Marshall University. Lonnie Thompson. Minor thing. You probably noticed when you came back to campus this year, we were still working on the old main roof. This summer we spent over $1 million repairing 5 roofing projects. Now, you don't see those because you're not going to get on top of the building and look at it. But we do a pretty remarkable job of keeping our campus in good condition and working well. And I want to thank all the folks who've been involved in that project. Dow Chemical. As you know, Dow Chemical came to our valley just this last year, and we wanted them to waste no time, so we were over talking about support for Marshall University within the first 30 days that they were here, and they have given us $90,000 over a 3-year period to support our Science and Math Festival. So we're very happy to have Dow Chemical involved in that with us. Many of you may have come to the recent dedication of the Appalachian Transportation Institute. We had Congressman Ray Hall here, the Secretary of Transportation, Norm Mineta, and the Governor all came over that day. And we had a very wonderful celebration. And this facility is really important to us. This is something that brings in $12 million to us over 6 years. Very important to the economic development and the academic development of our institution. You may not know that we have a new address here. We've been called 400 Hal Greer Boulevard for a long period of time, but this fall, to enhance our national image of who we are and what we do, you see John Marshall everywhere, and now you see him on our address. We are now officially 1 John Marshall Drive. I know many of you are familiar with our new family of logos. It's an important thing to have a family because you have so many different things that you have to try to do. This particular set of logos was developed by one of our former students, Phil Evans. I think he did an excellent job because you have something that appeals to every kind of activity that's going on. What I want you to know, though, is to develop this logo would have cost us a lot more money if we had to go out and do it. We got a wonderful job done for really kind of the 10% travel agent cost, the basic cost. Cost us about 10% to develop it of what it would have without Phil Evans. If you get an opportunity, drop him a letter and say thank you. Sweat Equity 2. As you know, last year I wanted to develop something so freshmen would feel a part of this campus and to really do something on campus and feel like that counts. I remember last year I decided to paint an ugly rusted casing right outside of the administration building. And I still must say when I go in every day I look at it and say, I'm glad I did that. And it seems to me that's the kind of investment we want our students to feel. Many students go home every weekend, they don't make that connection. This is designed for freshman students to make contact and feel part and ownership of Marshall University. And this year, we had the number of people participating go from 250 last year to about 500 this year in Sweat Equity 2. HELP celebrates its 20th anniversary. And I have to tell you, if you're looking at a program that tells you how to deal with learning disabilities, what Barbara Geyer does out there is really outstanding. Barbara, if you're here, I'd like to say thank you to you. While we're talking about anniversaries, let's be aware of the fact that this is our 65th anniversary for the Marshall Artist Series. Now, Kenny Rogers is not holding in Bill Cosby's stomach here, but it's rare that you're going to see at an institution of our size, you're going to see those kinds of talent available, one in November and one in December. And in addition to that, for our 65th anniversary, we've got a number of Broadway shows that are going to be done here as well. It's an outstanding season, and I think Penny Watkins, if you're here, I want to thank you for scheduling that kind of star power. The Big Green. Every university in the country is trying to make sure that they have athletics pay their own way in terms of what they're doing, and we certainly want to do that here at Marshall. One of the ways we do that is we raise scholarship money through an organization called the Big Green. We have about 400 athletes who get scholarships or partial scholarships at Marshall University. The Big Green has been stepping up to the plate better and better every year. As a matter of fact, in 1996, they were raising about $900,000 for those scholarships, and this year we got that number up by $500,000. It's growing at about $100,000 a year. So we're very happy with the Big Green. If you run across any of those people, they're contributing money to scholarship for our athletics. So say thank you to them. You may know that maybe 2 weeks ago, we had at a football game on Saturday a dedication of the Fred and Christine Shuey building. That's the old facilities building that's right next to the stadium. Now, what has happened in that is we had the coal industry leaders and the natural gas industry leaders in this state step forward and put up $2 million to pay off the debt on that facility. So we're very, very happy and appreciative to the friends of Fred and Christine Shuey, because that's who they want it dedicated to. Burl Osborne is one of our graduates. He is the most recent publisher, just retiring from his position as publisher of the Dallas Morning News. He has a resume that is as long as your arm, has done some remarkable things. And we've invited him to come back to our campus on October 10th. And we will have several things that Hal Shaver is involved in, and it's going to be an excellent program. I hope you turn out and say thank you and appreciate the lifetime work of Burl Osborne. You'll notice in our stadium, we have put up a new Heard version statement. That allows us to communicate what's going on not only in athletics, but at the university as well. And we'll be able to get out messages of upcoming things and be able to get like 30,000, 35,000 people in one shot knowing what's going on. Pretty good way to do that. We're also paying for that by the cost that we're charging people who are advertising on the board. So in about 5 years, we will own that board, and it'll all be profit for us after that. The Governor's Honors Academy has been in existence since 1984. 17 years, and it has never made an appearance at Marshall University till now. In the year 2002 and 2003, we will have a 3-week session on the Marshall University campus, and that session will be for the best and brightest junior students who are going into their senior year. It's a mark of distinction, and we're delighted to have that Governor's Honors Academy here at Marshall for the next 2 years. Alumni visibility. A lot of people say, you know, where's the president? We don't see him every day. We wonder what he's doing. Sometimes I'm out on alumni tour. And in the last year and a half, I have been out to 12 different states and the District of Columbia trying to meet different people who are alumni. We have 80,000 alumni at Marshall University, and a lot of them are not in West Virginia. As a matter of fact, over half of them are not in West Virginia. So we've been making contact, and I think that's really important as we talk about what Marshall is doing and as we try to raise some support from our alumni and other people to make our future brighter. Owning the opportunity. Now, I know you all got a copy of that recently. And again, I don't want Sarah to leave here with too of a swelled head, but Sarah Denman stepped forward and did, again, a superb job on this document. I know we had a couple hundred people involved in that, but it happened on schedule, it was thoughtful, it was provoking, it laid out the future very, very fully. And I think that's a document which is as good as any I've seen in terms of long-range planning. And you can actually read it. It doesn't get lost in massive pages. It's not the kind of document that's going to get stuck on a shelf. It's a living, breathing document, and lays out an excellent future. So again, for an encore, Sarah Denman. It was also my pleasure over the summer to edit a book with Sarah, and you'll be receiving a copy of that in your boxes over the next couple of weeks. What we did is we took all of the celebrity series that we had last year, and we edited those speeches and published them in a little volume called Higher Education in the 21st Century. It's an excellent publication, and I think as you read through it, you'll see that we're doing some of the things that people were talking about doing in there. It's a nice publication. It's done by Marshall University, and we'll make sure it falls in the hands of people who can help us with our national image. We have 12 initiatives in that, and again, you all have your own copies. The one thing I do want to stress about this is we're serious about it, and we're going to be doing an annual inventory to find out what we've achieved in the last year. And we're going to ask department chairs and deans to play a major role in making that happen. One thing I've talked about only in passing is the capital campaign. I believe in a portfolio attack on the future. That is, if you're in the state of West Virginia, we're never going to get enough money to do everything we want to do in terms of quality, innovation, and those kinds of things with state dollars. Probably we're talking about 3-4% of money annually for the next few years. With recent events, possibly less than that. So we're not going to do everything we need to do with state money. That means our second portfolio attack is federal money. And we have great success in the Senate and the congressional delegation, and we're going to keep working on that. We have a number of requests in this year, so we've been following those monthly. But the last part of that is raising private money. And between 1990 and the year 2000, Marshall University raised about $33 million. Now that may sound like a lot of money. It may not sound like very much. $33 million in a decade. Our goal is going to be much more ambitious on that for the next few years. And we've tapped a leadership group to help make that happen. Carolyn Hunter and Keith Spears are actually co-chairing that from an on-campus operational point of view. But the private person, the person who's an alumnus of ours, who is really heading it up, is a guy named Tim Haymaker, who lives in Lexington. He's been a very, very successful commercial development person. And Tim Haymaker is the person who's going to make this thing spring to life. We hope to have vice chairs from all over the country, not just here in Huntington or here in West Virginia. And many of those people are in place. Next fall, I will be announcing what the capital campaign is going to be called, how much money we're seeking to raise, and hopefully we'll have half of it in hand when we do that. Now, what about this whole target thing that I was talking about at the beginning of my address? It seems to me that in order to make progress, you have to lay out your goals, you have to work very vigorously at those, and you have to be able to see some degree of success. I'd like you just to look at a dozen verifiable results that we've achieved since that address I made in April of 2000. I've talked about these during the address at some point. But we have our own 10-year plan, which I talked about creating. We're expanding our parking. We're expanding our housing. We're growing, which is remarkable, again, in a state that's not growing in high school graduates. We have 2 new doctorates that are going to be in place, and hopefully both on deck by next fall. We have a new logo. We've expanded graduate education much faster than anywhere else in the state. We've upped stipends for graduate students. We've gotten very much success in terms of federal earmarks, far more than I ever expected that we would have. We have a capital campaign that we're working on getting started that will be ready to be kicked off in earnest next fall. We're in the silent phase right now. We've moved our research agenda ahead. We've increased research by $8 million since April of 2000. And we got a $1.1 million peer equity judgment. Now, those are pretty reasonable things to be proud of as an institution. And what it says to me is that Marshall University has looked at those targets. And although those targets are all moving, we are a university that's on the move. What I'd like to do is leave you today with 6 challenges. And I'd like you to kind of think about these as I go through them for you. Challenge number 1 is kind of a fun challenge, and that's the Marshall family tree. challenge. You know, I've heard Bob Pruitt speak about 50 times. He's always talking about how many people graduated from Marshall from his family. I'd like to know who the family is and where they are that have the most Marshall graduates. Husbands, wives, sons, daughters, cousins, whatever it is. And I want to challenge this university to help us locate who has the most Marshall graduates in their family tree. And I'd like to put that in the hands of the Alumni Association, and I'd like to do some appropriate prizes for that. So 1 year from now, about the time we're kicking off our capital campaign, I'd like to announce who the biggest number, largest family tree is in the history of Marshall University's 80,000 alumni. A second challenge, and that's one I've been talking about ever since I got here, and that's the challenge of national prominence. We can't be prominent in everything, but we can be prominent with everybody playing their role. If you go to a national conference, that helps Marshall's prominence. If you write a paper, if you write a book, that helps Marshall's prominence. Wherever you're doing in a leadership role, that helps Marshall's prominence. So I'm going to challenge each and every one of you to do something to help the prominence of your university. Third prominence would be what I call the Two for the Seesaw challenge. I'm an old observer of theater, and Gibson's play, Two for the Seesaw, caught my fancy in this regard. You'll notice that we have a teeter-totter there, if you will, and on that you have the big M on one side, and that's us here at Marshall University. But if we're going to move toward national prominence, we're going to have some help from our alumni, from our friends, and from everybody associated with what I call the extended family at Marshall University. If you take that big M, where it is, and take that extended family, eventually that extended family will sink down to the bottom, and that will put Marshall up in more prominence. If we have everybody working in that direction, we can get there. So the two for the Seesaw challenge is to get the other parts of Marshall University to do it with us. Because without them, our teeter is not going to totter. And we need to kind of move in that direction. So that's challenge 3. Challenge 4, one I haven't talked about very much, but I'm very serious about. I think universities need to do more in conjunction with what's going on in the K-12 system. And I would like to cooperate with the K-12 system in this state and to try to make significant improvement or enrichment or enhancement in the senior year of high school experience. So one of my goals is to help senior year significance in the state of West Virginia. I'd like to see us do more dual credit courses so people have a chance to experience some college if they're ready when they're in high school. And I'd like to see Marshall host not a state conference, but a national conference on the significance of the senior year and improving it. The next challenge is one of teacher content. You know, I'm a teacher in preparation. I got a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in education and a master's in teaching at Wayne State University. And I've been extremely interested in that for my whole life. But I can tell you that in our state, we have far too many people that are teaching science or math or technology without having the appropriate training. That does not help our educational parts. So we need to become a center, and part of this can be done in our new science technology building, where we can have a major impact on preparing teachers of science, math, technology, and I would add language. Did you notice in the last week or so that if you stack up all the states from 1 to 50, 1 being bad this time, West Virginia is the most monolingual state in the country. We need to change that, and we need to do that because of the events that are going in the world right now. We need to know more. We need to know more about the cultures. We need to be able to speak some of the languages. We need to take a leadership role in that. The last challenge I would leave you with is what I call the Longfellow challenge. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow had a statement about people, and he said something to this effect, that we tend to judge what we've done. We tend to judge ourselves by what we've done instead of what we're capable of doing. And I'd like to take that Wadsworth statement and turn it into a statement about us and what our aspirations are. If you look at it institutionally, the statement would be something like this. Most institutions of higher education in the country tend to judge themselves by what they've done. But our standard at Marshall University should be somewhat higher. Our standard should be to judge ourselves by what we're capable of doing. And that's the challenge that I would lay out. Lee Iacocca, back to Lee. If you're going to shoot the duck, you're going to have to move your gun. And you know what? At Marshall University. This is hunting season. Thank you very much.